Hi everyone, I'm Abby. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen and welcome back to our series Enlightened by Intuitive Eating. In our last video, we discussed principle number 9 of intuitive eating, exercise, feel the difference. So if you haven't watched that video yet, go check it out and then come back to watch this one. Now, before we get started, I want to flag that this content may not be for all of my viewers, so feel free to take and leave what you find valuable. I also want to remind you to check out Evelyn, Tribole, and Elyse Resch's book, which I've linked below. And a big thank you to intuitive eating dietitian Alissa Rumsey for reviewing this content. I'm going to be leaving her contact in the description below so that you can reach out if you're looking for any one-on-one consults. Let's start with our viewer question. Dear Abby, I chronically overeat because the food just tastes good. Not because I'm dieting or restricting and binging, but because I just love food and I can't seem to stop. How is it possible that intuitive eating would ever work for somebody like me? This is actually a very common question, so I thought that it would be really great to address it in our last episode here. Now, there are a few things that could be at play here. First, it's important to remember that it's okay to eat past the point of what's comfortable fullness for you. Intuitive eating is not the hunger fullness diet. Sometimes foods just taste really super delicious and we just want to keep eating no matter what. And that's okay. There are also times where we may not be physically hungry, but we're taste hungry, so we eat things anyways. And that's okay too. The other thing to think about here is that even if you aren't dieting or physically restricting food and you're allowing yourself to eat all the things, if you're still actually mentally restricting, then you may have a really hard time stopping when you feel physically full. Mental restriction and scarcity thoughts include things like, oh, I'm not going to snack this afternoon because I always eat so much when I do. Or I'm only going to eat when I'm super hungry today. Or I have got to stop. I can't do this overeating thing again. Even if you're not physically restricting, these types of mental restriction thoughts have the same effect on our body as if you were dieting. Your body gets the message that restriction may be kind of on the horizon, which makes it really hard to stop eating when you feel full. It can also trigger your body to increase your appetite or your cravings because it thinks that food scarcity is actually coming. To stop mentally restricting, instead come from a place of abundance. When you view food as abundant, plentiful, and allowed, and reframe any mentally restrictive, guilty thoughts, it will be easier to stop when you're actually physically full. Instead of, I always overeat, I need to stop, try telling yourself, I'm allowed to have this delicious food whenever I want. And then follow through by allowing yourself to eat the next time that you're hungry and you want it. This permission and abundance, along with some mindfulness to notice and enjoy the food, reduces the urgency and needing to finish it all right in one place. Now let's get into our final video on intuitive eating. So in this video, we're going to be discussing the last principle, principle number 10, honor your health with gentle nutrition. Now, a lot of people argue that intuitive eating doesn't make sense for most people because it doesn't teach people about what is actually good to eat for your health. That is actually not true. Intuitive eating is an approach to health and well-being that does actually include nutrition and movement, as we talked about last week. Intuitive eating isn't about eating endless amounts of chips and candy. It's about ditching the diet mentality and establishing a healthy relationship with all foods. It's about getting rid of the guilt and enjoying all foods as they were meant to be enjoyed. The 10th principle of intuitive eating is about using gentle nutrition to help honor your health. This principle is last for a really good reason. The reason we need to put nutrition kind of on the back burner until we can establish some of these other primary principles into our life is because if you're still stuck in the diet mentality, learning more and more about nutrition may feel kind of more like another set of guidelines or rules, and those tend to trigger our body's starvation deprivation response, and we just continue the diet cycle, even if we aren't necessarily trying to diet. It's important that we unlearn diet mentality and process other principles of intuitive eating first so that they have time to kind of marinate and solidify in our life. When you've made peace with food, tuned out the food police, and are able to make food choices without fear or without guilt, then you can start to work on adding in gentle nutrition. Unfortunately, our society today creates a massive fear around food. You don't have to be a chronic dieter to fear food. In fact, I guarantee most of us see food-phobic messages on social media multiple times a day. Whether it's a list of foods to avoid for weight loss, a video claiming that celery juice will cure chronic diseases, or CNN telling you about the newest study headline that certain food components can cause cancer, we are constantly bombarded with messages purposefully or subliminally telling us to fear food. With a constant fear that food may hurt us, many people are becoming obsessed with eating healthy. And although this may sound like a good thing, the obsession of only eating clean or healthy foods can easily feed into the development of orthorexia, defined as an eating disorder marked by an unhealthy and rigid obsession with healthy eating. Orthorexia is becoming a huge problem nowadays, and we see a lot of signs of it online. A quick look at some of the top YouTubers and Instagram influencers, and you'll see them obsessing about every little calorie and every little nutrient to the point that it's pretty much all that they talk about. They start avoiding anything with sugar or processed ingredients. Then they cut out any added oils. Then they shun ingredients just because they can't necessarily pronounce them in an ingredient list. The list goes on and on. If you take a look at different cultures, you'll actually notice that this obsession surrounding food is much more prevalent in North America than it is in other nations. Take France, for example. The French are known for having a massive focus on pleasurable, delicious food, and yet have significantly lower rates of chronic disease despite being the capital of croissants and wine and butter. One of the theories explaining this discrepancy is that France and other nations focus more on food as pleasure, rather than something that we need to fear and restrict. If you've ever been to France or Italy or a similar European nation, you'll notice that the food culture is very different. People take breaks during the day to sit down and have a luxurious lunch. Dinner is not in front of the TV and can last for hours with family and friends. Eating is considered a social event rather than a chore that we have to do many times a day, and people know how to savor every bite. Overall, their food culture is much slower and more deliberate, while North Americans tend to eat food very quickly and usually try to multitask at the same time. The point is, it seems the more focus and fear we put on food through dieting and the less time we spend on enjoying food through intuitive eating, the more likely we are to damage our relationship with food and ultimately our health. In fact, while nutrition science has evolved significantly over recent decades, health seems to actually be on the decline. According to the World Health Organization, in 2001, non-communicable diseases contribute to 60% of global deaths. In 2016, this went up to 71% of deaths globally. In fact, in high-income nations like Canada and the US, 9 out of the 10 top causes of death were from non-communicable diseases like heart disease, stroke, dementia, COPD, cancer, diabetes, and kidney disease. Another thing to keep in mind is that no one food will lead to bad health. Just like eating a salad won't magically shed 10 pounds, eating food that has the label of unhealthy, whatever that might be, won't give you heart disease or cause weight gain. Food is so much more than just numbers. It's flavor, it's texture, it's culture, it's social environment, pleasure, tradition, and so much more. Reducing it to a simple calculation cannot account for any of that. And all those things play a really important role in our health. In fact, there is some interesting research that shows that eating with others can improve our nutrient intake. One cross-sectional study of over 8,500 people found that those who ate alone were less likely to meet their daily nutrient needs. In contrast, those who ate in the company of others were more likely to get enough nutrients throughout the day. Interestingly, this didn't mean that people in groups ate more calories. They simply ate more health-promoting, nutrient-dense foods. Now, one of the biggest critiques of intuitive eating is the notion that encouraging people to eat ad libitum encourages them to eat unlimited amounts of food and ultimately drive themselves into poorer health. The thinking is that without rules and structure, we somehow can't figure out how to eat without going completely overboard. But let me put this question out here. How come diets, which are ridden with rules and guidelines, don't work? How come so many people aren't able to stick to a diet long term? Certainly, under this theory, having rules and guidelines to stick to should give us the willpower that we need to push through, right? Maybe not. Research has shown that dietary restraint is linked with more weight gain than intuitive eating is. In fact, intuitive eating is associated with better nutrient intake, lower body weights, improved health parameters like heart health, as well as an overall better relationship with food, with research even showing a reduction in disordered eating thoughts and behaviors. Contrary to what they think, intuitive eating is not linked to excessive food intake or weight gain. But you know what is? Extreme restriction. I mean, you've seen me talk about cheat days on this channel a lot, and I think that that is a textbook example of what happens when we restrict the foods that we love. One day we crack at the sight of a cupcake and we end up eating the entire whole box of cupcakes in an all-day Last Supper event. So now let's focus on how intuitive eating can authentically promote health. First is achieving authentic health. When you finally get rid of any lingering diet mentality and remove morality from eating, you can actually start to focus on how certain foods make you feel. Interestingly, this can actually lead people to just naturally choose healthier options more regularly because they tend to feel more energized, have fewer digestive issues, and just have better concentration overall. Maybe they also sleep better and they just feel more alive. In contrast, eating an entire big family-sized bag of chips followed by an extra large pizza and polished off with 3 sleeves of chocolate chip cookies doesn't usually feel so good for most people. But eating a colorful salad with some protein, some grains and some fats, and something for dessert is both physically satiating and emotionally satisfying, leaving you feeling great both in body and in mind. Research also actually supports this. People who identify as intuitive eaters have a higher diet quality than dieters do. And if we look at children who are naturally intuitive eaters, we see this too. As long as they're provided with a variety of food options, they will naturally just meet their nutrient needs over the course of a week without any external parental influence or pressure at all. As I've talked about before, allowing yourself unconditional access to all foods, including the ones typically demonized by weight loss diets, almost never leads you to only eat junk food. Rather, you may enjoy it a little bit, but after a while, your body will just naturally want you to eat something else. Remember my holiday example? If you've ever been to a resort, you'll know that the first few days are filled with like heavy buffet items and unlimited drinks. But after like the 3rd or 4th day, you might start unconsciously adding just more vegetables onto your plate. I mean, as humans, we like variety, and this is no exception. But you might be wondering, with so many competing recommendations, what is healthy eating anyway? Well, according to Evelyn, Tribole, and Elyse Resch, healthy eating is having a healthy balance of foods and having a healthy relationship with food. The gentle part of gentle nutrition is really important and is reflective of the flexibility and permission that is so integral to intuitive eating. Having that flexibility and groundwork set up by the other principles is what allows you to truly explore and find what feels good and works for you individually. The key is that you're making the choices from a place of honoring your health, not from any lingering diet culture motivations. Yes, of course, an apple is going to have more nutrients than a chocolate bar. Obviously, that is a given. But having a healthy relationship with food means that you can enjoy an apple or a chocolate bar and not feel like one choice somehow is just a better reflection on your character. Up until now, we've really focused on developing a healthy relationship with food, and I hope that you have started to work on some of the strategies that we've discussed. But we've been focusing mainly on your inner thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and physical sensations like hunger and satiety cues. But of course, to achieve authentic health, it's important to embrace both your inner and outer world. Your outer world consists of things like nutrition and exercise guidelines, philosophical preferences like eating local or eating plant-based or environmentally friendly, as well as other factors from the outside world. Though these are very important, it is key to focus on your inner world first and then slowly apply the tenets from the outside world like nutrition. So if you're still working on your inner world, then I would really take the following information with a grain of salt and come back when you feel that you're ready to apply it into your life. Let's go over one of the major considerations that I want you to take home about nutrition. And no, it's not to eat less gluten or sugar. Focus on adding more variety. With gentle nutrition, you want to think about adding in instead of taking out. In the world of dieting, we are told to eliminate foods or food quantities, so it may seem really strange to be told to add more types of foods to your diet. I want you to just take a second and ask yourself this question. How has eliminating foods served me? Has it made me happy? Has it given me the energy and the health that I'm looking for? Chances are, for most people, the answer is no. When you eliminate foods or food groups, not only do you increase the chances of a binge, but from a nutritional status perspective, you also increase the likelihood of nutrient deficiencies. But when you focus on eating a varied diet, you'll be better equipped to fuel your body with enough nutrients to stay healthy and stay vibrant. Years of negative food messages can make something like vegetables, fruits, or even fiber seem synonymous with dieting. When you've reached a point in your relationship with food where you can make decisions from a place of self-care, like, hey, I know vegetables provide me with nutrients that my body needs, instead of from a place of self-control, aka, I have to eat vegetables with this meal or else I'm not being healthy. Once our choice is coming from a place of self-care, we can have more flexibility to explore new foods and new cooking techniques as well. If you've never craved vegetables but have gotten to the point where you know all foods can fit and are available to you, trying out different recipes and kinds of vegetables to add to your meals and noticing how they make your body feel can be a really great way to practice gentle nutrition. Variety can also come from trying new foods, switching up your seasonings, or testing out new recipes. A good starting place for working in gentle nutrition is to look at what you currently eat and see if there are any ways or areas that you might be interested and willing to incorporate some more nutrition. Often I'm asked, well, Abby, if I don't track my nutrition or carefully follow a meal plan, how can I be sure that I'm getting all the nutrients that I need every single day? The goal doesn't need to be to get the same nutrients every day, but instead look at things over the course of a week. The truth is, our bodies are extremely smart and adaptable. For example, if you don't have enough iron in your diet for a bit, your body will start to absorb more of it naturally. If you have too much vitamin C, your body just gets rid of it through peeing. Not to mention, nutrient recommendations are literally just averages. Your body's unique needs are very different from your neighbors, and they also will vary year to year, month to month, day to day, and hour by hour. Seriously, people, our bodies really do know what is best for us and can easily adapt through absorption and excretion to make up for our imperfect calculations. And if you're eating a varied diet and not eliminating too many things, it's very likely that you just naturally will get what you need over the course of a few days. Once you keep this in the back of your mind, the urgency of needing to eat perfectly starts to disappear, and you can focus then on eating a diet full of balance and variety. Now, you may still be wondering, what should I do if I'm trying to eat healthier then? I would focus on three main things: taste, quantity, and quality. First is taste. And yes, this is the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to eating healthier. How many of you have gone on a diet and hated just about everything it wanted you to eat? Like, come on, people. Cauliflower is great and I love cauliflower, but it doesn't have to be in everything. Nowadays, healthy food isn't that enjoyable for a lot of people. It's always free of something that made the food taste good to begin with. Or you're only allowed to add a drizzle of dressing or a pinch of cheese, but never actually enough that you can actually taste it. Interestingly, there is research that has shown the importance of health food labeling and how it influences our perception of the eating experience. In one 2006 study, researchers showed participants different boxes of crackers that were labeled based on made-up nutrition facts. So for example, one box was labeled to have higher amounts of unhealthy fats, while the other box was labeled healthier. Despite differences in the boxes, the crackers were exactly the same. At the end of the study, the researchers found that even though there were no difference in the crackers themselves, the participants automatically assumed that the healthy crackers were less tasty and that the unhealthy crackers were way better tasting, even without even trying them. This goes to show that our society has created an inverse relationship between healthy food and flavor. But it doesn't actually have to be that way. I actually want you to focus on making your food always taste good. I always say healthy food is only healthy if you're actually willing to consume it. So there's no point in making a bowl of plain steamed Brussels sprouts if it's literally just going to sit on the table untouched. And if you do eat it, it's not likely going to be very emotionally satisfying, so you'll just go hunting for something else until you find something that hits the spot. You know, you want the cupcake, so you say, okay, I'll have the grapes. So you eat the grapes, but it's not enough, so then you eat the chocolate cereal. That's not quite enough, so you go eat the chocolate bar, you find at the bottom of the pantry somewhere, and that's still not what you actually wanted, so that you finally cave and you eat the cupcake along with the other 5 left in the pack. Had you just had the cupcake you wanted, you could have cut out all that flavor hunting and probably saved yourself a tummy ache too. So on that note, if you enjoy having a bit of cheese on top of your salad, you shouldn't feel guilty about that. In fact, if it makes eating a nutrient-rich salad more enjoyable, you're actually just more likely to eat it, and you should feel great about that. If you want to make pasta using regular pasta noodles instead of whole wheat pasta noodles, that is totally fine. I mean, as long as that doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the dish, you're catering to both your nutritional and flavor needs. I always think about this concept in terms of my toddler. If I want my toddler to eat something nutrient-rich, let's say salmon, okay? I'm gonna make it taste as damn good as I can. I'm not gonna give it to him unseasoned and steamed. I'm going to maybe add like a crispy coating or a sweet and tangy sauce in there. Why are we still dragging ourselves through boring, steamed, unsalted fish? We are worthy of flavor too. So I want you to remember that flavor enhances our eating experience and makes naturally nourishing and satiating foods satisfying again. For recipe ideas, feel free to check out my website, which is full of delicious ideas. Also, check out my book, The Mindful Glow Cookbook, which I will leave a link to in the description below. Okay, next let's talk quantity. So next thing I want to talk about is quantity, which I think is key in your intuitive eating journey, and maybe not for the reason that you think. When it comes to food, I actually want to make sure that you're eating enough food to satisfy your needs. When we're hungry and constantly underfueling, it can be really hard not to make frantic decisions about what to eat, and that is often when overeating tends to occur. It's also important to remind ourselves that chronically undereating can lower our metabolism while simultaneously creating a sense of kind of extreme or insatiable hunger. Both of these scenarios are very likely to result in the opposite of your intention when it comes to going on a weight loss diet. But what about those of us who tend to eat too much? I think that a lot of us can agree that the food industry often pushes large portions, and most people don't need to supersize every part of every meal. But as intuitive eaters, it really shouldn't matter if you're served a giant plate of pasta or a 12-ounce steak. If you're in tune with your hunger, fullness, and satisfaction cues, then you would just naturally stop eating when you're satisfied. As the co-author of the intuitive eating book, Evelyn Tribole says, portion control is not a problem for intuitive eaters. Since you're tuning into what your body wants and needs in that moment, you no longer need to rely on counting calories or feeling tied to a certain portion or amount of food. Your body, in fact, can guide you. I mean, it may be annoying that you've overpaid for something that you won't necessarily eat, but there are ways to manage this, like packing up leftovers or splitting the meal with a friend. Another reason that some people eat past the point of fullness is distraction. So if you're always eating while playing on your phone, answering emails, or watching TV, then it is very hard to pay attention to our fullness cues or even just enjoy food in general. This is why I definitely suggest limiting distractions during meals. My bet is that you'll be way more likely to pick up on some of those early signals. I'd also pay attention to when you eat past the point of fullness. What is going on there? Were you raised in a household that emphasized cleaning your plate? Did you not eat enough earlier on in the day so you were starving when you finally got a chance to sit down? Are you still having guilty thoughts around the food that you're eating? So we talked about mental restriction. So instead of judging yourself for eating too much, start to get curious about what may have played a role in that particular eating experience. And remember, be non-judgmental. Finally, let's talk about food quality. Before I start, it's really important that we take all of this information with a grain of salt and only use what suits you best. Remember that you should never ever feel guilty about eating any food. And this section is not me telling you what you have to or you should eat, but rather just some basics of nutrition that we know generally may result in greater satiety and greater satisfaction. So tip 1 is to add in a variety of vegetables and fruits. I'm sure you're told all the time about the benefits of vegetables and fruit, but why? What is so great about veggies and fruit? Well, first of all, these kinds of foods are rich in fiber, which is really important for gut and heart health, as well as for increasing satiety. They're also loaded with lots of vitamins and minerals that may help to lower the risk of chronic disease like heart disease and cancer. Research also suggests that compounds in produce known as phytochemicals act as antioxidants in the body to help protect the body from harmful compounds known as free radicals. Year by year, we're learning more and more about the importance of phytochemicals in the body, but simply put, they keep our cells protected and can ultimately help to reduce the risk of disease. Now, you don't need to just eat raw veggies to reap benefits. In fact, I actually encourage you to get really creative in the kitchen. Here are some ways to add some more veggies and fruit to your diet. Some of my favorite ways to add veggies and fruit to the diet are things like ratatouille, vegetable stir fry with rice, homemade soup with leftover veggies or frozen veggies, stuffed bell peppers, stuffed baked potatoes, quesadillas or fajitas, salad on the side of a main meal, or a large salad as your meal, just of course making sure to add other foods with some proteins and some fat, some fruit and veggie smoothies, pancakes or waffles with a little fruit compote on top, pasta sauce with lots of chopped veggies in there, or if you have kids and you don't like the texture, you can also blend the vegetables into a smoother pasta sauce. The sky is the limit. The key with vegetables and fruit is to add them to your diet in a way that you actually enjoy. Don't look at adding them for diet reasons. I mean, it's amazing how many people start to enjoy vegetables and fruit once they add it to their diet in a delicious and unique, enjoyable way. Tip 2 is to eat more fatty fish. This one may not apply to all of you since you may choose to avoid animal products, or maybe you just don't enjoy the taste of fish. Totally fair. But fish is rich in omega-3 fats, particularly EPA and DHA, which are key for our overall health. These fats support our brain, heart, and skin. Unfortunately, most people just don't get enough in their diet. So I do encourage you to try to add fish to your menu at least once or twice a week. And if you don't think that's doable, you may want to consider taking an omega-3 supplement, which are available both fish-based and algae-based online. Tip 3, drink enough fluids. Most people are not drinking enough and are mildly dehydrated all the time. This can cause people to feel hungry or even lethargic at times. While all beverages are allowed, I would try to focus mainly on drinking good old water throughout the day. A good tip is to fill a water bottle and carry it with you throughout your day. While some guidelines suggest 2 to 3 liters per day, a good goal is to drink enough so that you don't feel thirsty or have signs of dehydration like feeling lightheaded, having pale skin, concentrated urine, etc. Tip 4, have a loose structure around meals and snacks. Just like nutrition isn't thrown out the window with intuitive eating, a structure around meal planning doesn't have to go either. Having some framework around meals and snacks can help make the school or work week easier and less stressful by helping you feel prepared. Think about the general structure of your meal or snacks, including some protein, carbohydrates, fiber, and fat. You can also plan on grocery shopping for fun, satisfying foods to, of course, keep in the house or have on hand for some snacks. If planning ahead is helpful, you could make a list of foods that you really like in each of those kinds of categories, and then basically just mix and match to come up with some creative recipes for meals and snacks. One thing I like to do is to look up 1 or 2 ingredients that I have on hand in order to find a recipe idea or a little inspiration for days that I'm feeling stuck. The key word here is loose structure, meaning not every meal will have each of these components, and that is totally okay. You don't need to batch cook and line everything up in identical Tupperware, but having a general structure of how to build a meal that satisfies you and fills you up may make the process easier. Tip 5, zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Diet culture sells us on worrying and stressing over individual nutrients and the extreme effects of each aspect on our food choices. But really, overall habits and patterns, as well as aspects aside from nutrition, are way greater indicators of overall health. Yes, we have research to show that certain foods promote health and can prevent disease, and choosing to incorporate those foods is a great example of gentle nutrition. But zooming out can also help you look at your overall diet composition and patterns. Are there areas that you'd like to add in more nutrient-dense foods? Are there times when you'd like to be a little bit more flexible around your food choices? Are there times when you're left feeling unprepared or uninspired with meals and snacks that you'd like to explore a little bit more? To ensure that these choices don't come from a place of restriction or residual diet mentality, it's important to remember that no one food or meal determines our health, which is also why all foods can fit and can support a healthy diet. So how to keep the pleasure in healthy eating? Well, to finish up this video, I really want to reiterate the importance of focusing on pleasure when eating. If you don't enjoy food, you're gonna have a really hard time practicing intuitive eating. Remember that listening to your body not only involves staying in touch with satiety levels, but also asking yourself these really important questions. Do I really like the taste of the food that I'm eating? Or am I just eating it for diet reasons? How does eating this food make my body feel? How do I feel when I eat consistently in this manner? Can I sustainably do this over time? Do I feel more or less energized after eating this? If eating healthy is both a pleasurable experience and makes you feel your best, then you're more likely to continue honoring your health with your food choices. Remember that it's not about deprivation. It's about including foods that make you feel your best. Sometimes that's going to be a salad, and sometimes that's going to be chocolate. Both are totally fine choices and should never make you feel guilty. Foods may not be nutritionally equal, but remember that we can make them morally equal. In the book by Evelyn, Tribole, and Elyse Resch, they provide an intuitive eating bill of rights, which I think is a really great way to end off this series. You have the right to savor and enjoy your meal with zero judgment. You have the right to have seconds without explanation. You have the right to honor your fullness and say, no thank you, if somebody offers you more food. You do not have to explain yourself. It's not your responsibility to make somebody happy by overeating, even if they spent hours making it. You are always allowed to eat it later if you want more. You can have whatever you want for breakfast, lunch, or dinner and not feel bad for it. You want cereal for dinner one day? Go for it. Want leftover pizza for breakfast? Go for it. Remember that you are in charge of your life and your body. No one knows how you feel except for you. Only you are the expert of your body, and always, always remember that. With all that said, this week's homework is to practice enforcing the intuitive eating bill of rights. Perhaps pick one right each day to really embrace. Over time, you'll be able to embrace each one without even thinking about it for a moment. But remember, it does take time, and that is totally okay. Finally, I want to say a big thank you to Evelyn, Tribole, and Elyse Resch for writing such a fabulous, inspiring book. Definitely purchase it below by visiting the link in the description, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. On that note, that is all for today, folks. If you liked this video, be sure to give it the thumbs up, leave me a comment below with any questions that you have on intuitive eating, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!